best for all of us is that we could start with a word of prayer by a volunteer, and then after the prayer we shall do some introductions, and after the introductions we'll have a minute to just explain why we are here, and that minute will, most of it, focus on the main activity of the day, which is a webinar. And so without any further ado, I would like to request for a volunteer to pray for the day's program.
Let us pray.
Thank you, Jen. Sorry, I should not have said your name. You're not yet known. You're still undefined. Now let me take this opportunity to welcome our partners, the invited guests, and stakeholders who have turned up for this important session of the day. And today we are here courtesy of GCRF Africa Catalyst Sustainable Project. This is a project supported through the Royal Academy of Engineering, UK. The title of the project is Capacity Building Towards an Integrated Resources Platform for Renewable Energy Access in Kenya. And the many things we'll be discussing today will be further explained a bit later after the introductions. And so without wasting more time, I would request that I selfishly start the introductions from where I am. I'm Professor John Githaiga from Moi University, School of Engineering, Department of Manufacturing, Industrial and Textile Engineering, and also the principal investigator for this project, and I take the opportunity to welcome you all. Thank you so much. We'll go clockwise. So clockwise means it goes to my left, and we'll go around.
We will investigate your sense of direction. My name is Professor Zachary, also from Moi University, School of Engineering, part of this project.
My name is
My name is from Moi University, a member of this project.
Good morning. My name is Esther Njau with the Association of Energy Professionals Eastern Africa, and we are partners in this project.
My name is Hannes Sako Kongo. I'm the Vice President of Energy Professionals in Eastern Africa, and we are partners in this project.
So this is the third webinar in the series. We've had two successful webinars before. This is the third one, and it's a bit different from the way we took it. We did the other two, and I think possibly the biggest change is the venue, Nairobi. And I've been told that in Nairobi, one should not worry, but at the end of the day, everything will have happened. So that Nairobi is like this. You want to do something, but it takes time before everything is in place. You don't wake up to go to work. You wake up to go and hustle with the traffic to go to work. So that's what I was told, and I want to believe that at the end of the day, we still achieve our objectives. So I'm happy that the stakeholders invited have met with our partners. There is one more partner who has not yet arrived. This is W. Jitson, Energy Solutions Kenya Limited. They deal with solar at large scale. I hope they are still on the way coming. Otherwise, the rest of the members are here. We'll have the activity of the webinar, and there are one or two persons who will be virtual, and we hope that in the end we'll be able to transact. We have a simple but very important agenda ahead of us. As a nation, we started renewable energy a long time ago, but as we know, the stakeholders are all fragmented, in the sense that people are in their domains doing what they do, but when you analyze it, you'll find that sometimes when you all come together, there are things we stop duplicating, there are things we do that synergize with what other people are doing. And when the concept of this project came up, an idea of building a one-stop shop, a digital platform where we can put all activities of renewable energy together, we thought it should also be a way of synergizing the people so that we bring all the people together. At least I'm happy that today where we are seated, there is that element that we have people in the training, people in technology, we have people in policy, others in the business, and therefore we can say there is a common voice that's coming out through this initiative. And as part of our subject of the day, the webinar, we are trying to look now collectively from all the corner you come from, what have been the challenges of adoption of renewable energy in Kenya. And therefore it means it's a platform or a session where we'll be able to exchange, and hopefully at the end, they say from the SWOT analysis, challenges are supposed to be turned into opportunities. And I'm hopeful that after the discussions that we shall have, possibly we'll be able to say it was not in vain, that we can come up with strategies that can help to solve the challenges that will be highlighted. And looking at the time, I would want to say, I would want to request that Professor Simiu Sitati, whose name was missing, but him is here. He will be chairing the session of the webinar, and the moderator of our seminar is also here with us. Engineer Hannes Muhongo will be our moderator. We have three panelists inside the hall, and they decided to take the back seat, and I'm happy because that really means that as backseaters they have a lot to fire up the session. So, and we have one more who is virtual, and we'll allow him also to join. But I would have also requested that Mr. Josephat Shege, who comes from Biogas International, together with Dominic Wajehia, who is virtual, also joins the panelists to the front, so that in case there is something that is not going right, he's a backup, and he also has ideas. He's been in the field for quite some time, so that we don't have an empty seat. And with that, I would say I request the chair of the session, Professor Sitati, now to continue with organizing the moderator, and the moderator to organize his panelists. Thank you very much, and over to you, Professor Sitati. Thank you, everybody, and welcome.
Thank you, Professor Gidaiga. I don't know when I turned from a person to a chair. So me, I've been given a very simple task to welcome the panelists who have come today and the moderator. So we have only a few minutes to get into the session. Okay, so I want to request
Yeah. Oh, you're asking the list of the
so
panelists?
I want to call upon Professor Gidaiga to announce the names of the panelists, the way they are supposed to be pronounced in the right format. But before that, then I would want to call the moderator first to come forward and occupy the seat before the members of the panel come. And the job for Professor Gidaiga is to say the names in the right accent.
In the right accent.
Yes.
Thank you. I've never seen a situation where you delegate and the person delegated immediately delegates back. Thank you so much. The moderator is already on the front, and nobody gave him a clap. Next, to join us on the list of the panelists, we have Eva Mushiri.
You didn't pronounce it that way.
Yes.
People pronounce it the way the mother would have pronounced it.
No, you should say the father, because I can only say the way the father would do it. Okay. And then the next panelist is Mr. David, the son of Jesse.
Okay.
So David, Ben, Jesse, please. I don't want to say where they come from, because they will talk about it themselves. And the real accent of how they pronounce their names will come out. I want to move on and invite Engineer Maxwell Gara. Please, Engineer. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
And last but not least, there is a man that talks biogas in every discussion. Mr. Josephat Shege, kindly come to the front, representing Biogas International, but we know Mr. Dominic is online, so you are holding the dual position of representing him, so we cannot have an empty seat. So you have the panelists.
Umemaliza kazi yako?
Since all of them have their mothers, they can say how their mother called them. Otherwise, for me, I could say what the fathers do, but this time I requested to be excused. And therefore, I nimemaliza kazi yangu. Thank you, sir.
Kama Josephat angekuwa Eldoret, tungemuita Josephat. Asante sana. So we have like 1.5 hours to have the webinar, and I would want to leave it to the control of Engineer Sakwa and to proceed with the session. Bwana Sakwa, you're welcome.
Thank you. I hope I'm audible enough. Can you hear me?
Is
At least
The father's back. Can you hear him?
The panelists can hear me. I don't know if you can hear me in the room. And then I just want to check to establish that we have communication with Dominic.
Let me set him. Let me find out.
Yeah, find out if one is hearing us, and then we can also do a sound check to establish that we can also hear him. Dominic, can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our webinar today. Today we have an interesting topic to discuss. We are all aware that we have the green revolution happening, where we have an uptick in the use of renewable energies globally, but also here in Kenya. However, with this upward trend of adoption of renewable energies, we still have a few challenges that are being experienced in the industry. And today we have a panel that's going to help us delve a little bit into some of these issues. And so our webinar today is going to be on challenges in the adoption of renewable energies in Kenya. I have a very interesting panel here today, and we are going to have self-introduction of our panel, and then go deep into the discussion of this topic. So for our panel, I'll give each and every one of you a couple of minutes to just introduce yourself and what you are doing in this space of renewable energy, and then just tell us your story, generally how you have interacted with the various renewable energy technologies and how they are being used in Kenya. So to start us off, I wish to be a gentleman and let the ladies lead us, because we have one of our panelists who actually constitutes half of our panel, so to speak. So I'll give the opportunity to Ms. Eva Mushiri from Slum Dwellers International to start our discussion for us today. Eva, Karim.
Thank you so much. I'm Eva Mushiri. I come from SDI Kenya, Slum Dwellers International Kenya, but I'm under Muungano wa Vijiji, representing the community aspect. So I'm a community mobilizer, and also a community researcher. I come from Mathare informal settlements. So I'm born and raised in Mathare informal settlements. I'm a community mapper also. So I have so many titles with me. So for me, I don't know how I'll present myself because here I've just heard about the academia, professor, engineer. So I don't know what I'll say. I don't know. I don't know what profession I'll carry, but I'll say, yeah, I represent the community, the urban poor community.
You are working with the renewable energies in the communities that you work with.
For me, what I'll say with my interaction is, it's my first time to be here, to be with this committee. For me, I got an invite via my how would I say, my colleague who is Charity. So for me, I'm just here to represent community. I'm here to take a slot that where is community? How do you integrate with community? How do you integrate the adoption process with the community language? Because whenever we speak about adoption, it's a very big word. But again, it's a simple word. For communities in the urban, well, they don't really understand these, let me say these big words. Let me say the Western language. But when we say just adoption, is how are they coping? How are they mitigating? How are they taking all this? How are they strategizing in making themselves being heard with this all? Because now we are actually, green energy is all over speaking, but in the informal settlements, is it workable? How is it going to work? So for me here, I'm just here to represent the community aspect and how we can integrate the adoption of renewable energy in the communities.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Next, we will go to now start from the far right, coming back to this side. Can have Mr. Dominic, not Dominic, David Jesse, the CEO of IRED, your self-introduction and your journey and introductory interaction with the renewable energy technologies.
Thank you. Thank you, Sakura. My name is Jesse, David Jesse. Just for reference, Prof, it is Jesse, not Jesse, so I think I will find you slightly out this. All right, but pleasure to be here. Thank you very much, good moderator, and also the organizers of this particular webinar. I can say that my interest in renewable energy dates back way back in 2007. Originally, I was actually more interested in the built environment because one of my undergraduate studies was actually in civil engineering. But as I ventured more into the built environment, I got interested in the infrastructure and things like that. I realized that there was a real big gap in the area of energy efficiency, especially in the communities. I like that we have a community interest person here. So during that time, new renewables were actually coming in, like biogas. Biogas has been in this country for a long time, but it never really received any prominence until around 2007. And I got to interact with a certain partner who were interested to promote that particular technology. And so I decided to move my interest in the renewable energy sector, and more so biogas, because I realized this was a very viable way of actually reaching access to energy amongst our communities. And apart from just having off-grid solutions, we also have cooking solutions. And so in 2007, just to give a little brief of my history, we came up with the first association for biogas technologies in the country, and that was the Kenya Biogas Contractors, or rather Association of Biogas Contractors of Kenya. We got a little support to begin to organize how this technology is going to penetrate the community. And so one of my biggest interests has been people, because we realize that at any level of intervention, whether it is technology or it's research work or whatever, whatever we want to implement, eventually it's the people who will actually carry out the particular assignment. And unless they're organized in a particular way, and unless they bring them together and manage those interests, it becomes very difficult to penetrate any technology. And so I took a lot of interest in trying to mobilize stakeholders in this, especially emerging technicians, people who are keen to try to venture into the business of providing the service of biogas to communities. Because at that time, since it was a new technology, there was a lot of push to try to cash into the process. And so a lot of quacks were also coming into the sector. And so we said the only way to do this is try to help them out by bring the professionals, those who are qualified together. And so we came up with that first association. But then as time went by, biogas began to take a lot of interest, even with the government and also the donor community. And so the space started to expand. And as it expanded, people are venturing more now, not just domestic systems, but also commercial systems, and also different segments of the technology. For example, those who are coming up to just apply the appliances. They're not really interested in putting up the installations, but they want to provide the appliances like the cook stoves, like the piping systems and what have you. And then there are those who just were interested in putting up for slaughterhouses and commercial or semi-commercial systems. Those who are just interested in doing the domestic systems. And so I took a lot of interest to try to mobilize them together. And so different types of, or rather, what can I say, interest groups came up. And so they were already forming into various groups or registering into other associations as well. And so sometime in 2016, I realized that there was a need to organize now the entire sector. And so we came up with the Kenya Biogas Stakeholders Network. So I'm one of the founders and also currently the CEO of the Kenya Biogas Stakeholders Network. Primarily, my role is to try to influence policy formulation vis-a-vis technology application. Because if the two gaps are not clearly addressed, then you realize that there'll be a lot of disconnect. And that's something that we're still grappling with today. In fact, as we address this topic today about the challenges of renewable energy, I think the biggest thing that for me I always want to focus on is policy. Eventually, I also took a lot of interest in the entire renewable energy spectrum as a whole. And so one of the interest movers for Kenya Renewable Energy Association, which today encompasses various kinds of renewable energies, including wind, including solar. And so I played quite a role at some point as an official in the career industry, where now we've had to leave it to the others to take over. But I still play a lot of influence diving into various aspects of renewable energy, and particularly for me, as I've mentioned, policy intervention is something that I've always been keen on. So briefly, that is my background in this sector and a little bit of this story.
Okay, thank you, David, for that taking us through that journey that you walked in the renewable energy sector. The next panelist I will introduce is Biogas International Limited. We have two panelists. We have Josephat Chege, who is in the room with us, and Dominic, who is online. So I'll start with Josephat, who is in. Can briefly tell us his journey. Then I will be able to give the chance to Dominic to also add to Biogas International Limited journey in the renewable energy sector as we proceed. Josephat.
Thank you. My name is Josephat Chege, and I work with the Biogas International Limited in the capacity of operations manager. Biogas International Limited, we are the developers of the flexi biogas technology, which is a new technology in biogas whereby just from the name flexible, it's basically a rethinking of the whole biogas, whereby when you talk about biogas, many people think about cows, but in this technology, we are saying everybody qualifies. With our biogas systems, we run them on anything and everything biodegradable. We run them on, apart from cow dung, we run them on organic waste, market waste, poultry manure, invasive species. So, and this opens up a whole new customer base for biogas. And you're saying everybody qualifies, provided so long as you've got access to some sort of waste, you can use biogas. So my journey with biogas, I joined Biogas International way back in 2013, straight from school, and I'll say the biogas in Ghana has growing. It's not as big as we'd like. For example, we do average about 200 to 300 units of biogas, domestic biogas systems per year. We know the potential is much more, and that's why we're here to just see what needs to be done to increase the uptake of biogas, not only in the country but globally.
Thank you, Josephat, and following up in that step, I will take it to Dominic, who is joining us online. Dominic, your first round of comments on this topic. Welcome, Dominic.
Greetings, everybody. Thank you for the webinar. As Josephat has just mentioned about our journey, when we came from small domestic systems, we have now ventured into very large capacity systems, also demonstrating that anything and everything biodegradable can be used for biogas. So we're now at the scale where we are going into municipal waste management, where we're managing tons, huge volumes of tonnage. I think biogas is the fastest way to put away organic waste, which makes up about 70% to 80% of what goes into dump sites and landfills. That can be managed at source. So our model is stop moving waste around, stop taking it from town to the dump sites, because you're just transferring the problem. You're still releasing massive greenhouse gases, you're still polluting rivers with dump sites. Managing waste at source means that you recover the energy and you recover the nutrients, which then go back into agriculture. So you literally do repurpose, recycle all organic waste that comes into town. The opportunities are immense because, as we all know, Africa is moving from a raw material supply, where Africa is moving from raw product supply, like where we've been exporting things like coffee, we've been exporting avocados, we've been exporting macadamia nuts. West Africa is been exporting cocoa. We're moving into a value-add generational wave, where we're now going to be exporting chocolate, we're going to be exporting avocado oil, we're going to be exporting tomato sauce, we're going to be exporting coconut oil, and all of these value-added products, and not the raw materials. The most important ingredient to all of these value-add processes is energy. Previously, everyone's looked at energy as in for steam, looking at wood fuel for running boilers, and for electricity to run the motors and everything. Everyone looks at the electricity, main grid electricity. But actually, when you have biogas, you have all the energy you need, and all of these processes can be done in-house. You can be completely off-grid. You can use the byproducts from whatever product you're processing to generate your energy. And then you have the leftovers, which I won't call them waste, because it's actually a very rich organic fertilizer that goes back into the circularity as a fertilizer back into the farms. So there is no waste, and you end up with very high value products. In the process, of course, you're creating huge volumes of employment, huge advantages. Africa's farmers can now benefit directly from their sweat, and not the brokers and not the people who are actually doing the value add to the products. So this is where we're going. We're also demonstrating, by the way, that all of these things we call invasive pests, water hyacinth, matenge, cactus, or punchikia, we're trying to rewrite that narrative. All of these plants are extremely valuable resources and can be used to generate huge volumes of energy through biogas. And of course, you recover the nutrients. So Mother Nature doesn't put things on the planet for nothing. Everything can be repurposed and turned into something, turned into a value add. So that's where we're going with this. We're looking for where are the other opportunities where we can plug in our technology to basically eliminate poverty and also help in curbing climate change, obviously, and creating opportunities for our youths. We got thousands of youths coming out of school and nowhere to go. There is just no job creation. Our industrialization has come to a sort of a slowdown. We need to create jobs for youths leaving schools. This form of energy is a gaping hole, a massive opportunity for millions of youths all over developing countries to generate revenue, generate incomes and careers out of processing using biogas. So thanks very much again. Over to the chairman.
Okay. Thank you, Dominic, for those interesting comments, especially about the uptake and use of biogas, especially in very innovative ways. Our next panelist is Engineer Maxwell Gala from IRED. This is a government body that initially was only dealing with rural electrification, but now with an expanded mandate to be able to promote the use and uptake of renewable energy across board. So, Engineer Maxwell, the introduction and your journey and introduction with the renewable energy technologies.
Thanks, Engineer, for the moderating panel very well. And also I want to appreciate my fellow panelists for, I think it's a very good panel. It's very great diversity, and which I think is good, fits into the whole story. Engineer, if you may, my presence of this panel I think is twofold. One is personal, another one is institutional, the part that will be speaking to IRED. The first part that is personal is that my name of course is Maxwell Gala. I sit in the Institution of Engineers of Kenya in one of the subcommittees, particularly dealing with the strategic plan. So this is an important body because then basically it's the learning society of engineers. So trying to strategize on the future of the profession and generally to see how to leverage on the many technologies that are available as we move into this green energy revolution. So running together this, I also am a fellow of the International Solar Alliance. The International Solar Alliance is headquartered in New Delhi, India. And it's basically a treaty-based organization that has about 130 countries, whose key focus is to mobilize resources so that then you can deploy renewable energy technology, especially solar at scale. And so that's one other entity, and I also am part of the Open Africa Power as a fellow, and also a fellow of the Africa Young Energy Leaders. This, I think, basically, in a sense, demonstrate my engagement around the subject. Locally, of course, I'm a licensed technician with the EPRA, the solar PV licensing. So on account of that, I run an entity also called Lepton Systems, basically that has design, installation, and feasibility studies for renewable energy systems. on account of this, then we interact in the sector on that personal level. On the institutional level is, of course, I represent on this panel also REREC. REREC has been a good journey. I think about 1973, the government decided to be a bit more ambitious in terms of connectivity targets, and so was born the Rural Electrification Fund or program, which then morphed later on to REA. At the beginning, the program was basically being implemented by Kenya Power. Of course, the MOE was a fund manager, but basically being implemented by the Kenya Power. You will appreciate that even though that program was running, access levels, especially in rural areas, was still about 4% by into the late 80s, 90s, and even early 2000s. So then REA was formed as a consequence of movement within the sector, the government's economic recovery strategy, and the Energy Act 2006, which then gave birth to REA. REA has served its part, especially being very aggressive in grid extension, but also the question of renewable energy was a bit subterranean under REA. In 2019, as a consequence of the Energy Act 2019, then REREC was born. Now REREC took on what REA was doing, but then added on its mandate the green energy revolution. So REREC, other than extending the grid in areas that are not financially viable for Kenya Power, REREC also is a lead agency for promoting renewable energy in the country. That means that takes in all sources and all forms, apart from geothermal and nuclear, which of course, depending on how you look at nuclear, but apart from geothermal particularly, which is domiciled at GDC. So that's where I am presently. We are pushing that agenda. We are just about to launch our strategic plan 2023-2027, which will be launched next week. Again, an aggressive movement away from the traditional to the new alternative energy technologies. So, right now, just so that then to help us further contextualize this, REREC has installed solar PV systems in public primary schools in 4,800 public primary schools. Each of these systems about 1.68 kilowatt peak. REREC has also done 27 solar PV mini grids, 26 of which are about 60 kilowatt peak each, and the latest is 305.2 kilowatt peak. So that's the project pipeline. Like in REREC, we've also done a lot of solar street lighting in informal settlements, in partnership with counties, and also in partnership with members of National Assembly through the CDF. Right now, of course, because of that expanded mandate, a lot of things that were previously being done by the Ministry of Energy are now being handled at REREC. One of which is energy centers, which are basically demonstration hubs and knowledge dissemination centers. About 16 such energy centers transitioned to REREC, and we're on the cusp of the 17th. It's basically our outreach arms of the organization in advocacy. We also now are very actively engaged in bioenergy, so trying to move forward the conversation on clean cooking, which in a sense, courtesy of the Energy Summit and the Energy Forum, part of which is domiciled in the office of the First Lady. But a lot of work happening in the Ministry of Energy itself, the parent ministry, and also REREC, which is the implementing agency. Then of course there's research and innovation also being done there in the areas of renewable. I right now manage a project called the Kenya Off-Grid Solar Access Project. I think I hope we have heard about it, which is an ambitious World Bank funded project with about 4 components. The first component of that project one of the components of that project is on clean cooking. Clean cooking solutions, basically trying to use a results-based financing, trying to push forward the conversation of clean cooking. There's a component on solar mini grids, which is a first component. And we want to, the government intends to develop 120 solar PV mini grids. IRED will develop 31 of these. Kenya Power will also develop about 89 of such mini grids. So these are mini grids, especially in the areas that are called the underserved areas of the country. So, quite a huge pipeline of projects. The IRED is also doing solar PV water pumps, so basically retrofitting diesel, formerly diesel pumps, diesel-powered pumps with solar in 380 such facilities across the country. So these are parts of the things that we are engaging in currently. We are also closing out a project which is called the Kenya Electricity Modernization Project, which has been developing 7 mini grids, particularly in the islands, in Mageta, Takawiri, Ngoni, that's on Lake Victoria. There is an island called Wasini and Kwiro in Kwale, and there is Dabel, Marsabit, and there's Kerio and Kairis in Turkana. So this engineer is our engagement in this space. We're very thrilled about this, especially about the partnerships that are worked as we move forward the conversation on green energy.
Thank you very much, Maxwell, for that very enlightening and enriching conversation that you brought forward to this panel. So, as we look at the utilization of these various green or renewable energies, and our discussion will likely center around biomass and biogas technologies. Then we have solar. Then I'm sure there will still be aspects of the grid interaction, even though for most of the formal settlements we may not have maybe proper or adequate grid adoption. There are a number of things that will come into play as you look at utilization of these renewable energy sources or technologies. So there will be aspects of the infrastructure available. In some places, maybe if it is in formal settlements in urban areas, there will be constraints of space, maybe adequacy or lack of grid access. But then there are also issues to do with awareness, because we find that now, because of the green revolution, we have a lot of developments that are coming on board, especially which are very innovative. And in that respect, you will find that there could be solutions that are available, but there is little awareness with the people. So in the next round of discussion, I just want to get your views on how the current infrastructure and technology availability for the various sectors are playing out in the areas that you interact. What are the limitations? Maybe are the technologies available? Are the technologies relevant to the kind of uses that people need? And then are people adequately aware of these different technologies and programs, like what Engineer Maxwell has put out. So this time round, I can start with David, if you can take this one for us.
I think the question of infrastructure is very critical when we're looking at expansion of renewable energy. And you can look at it in various aspects for that matter. If you look at it, let me start from the biogas point of view. Most of the need for biogas technology is in rural communities. Why is that so? It's because there's a strong need to have healthy cooking and you find that one of the biggest problems that you have at the community level are health-related issues, and also matters of environmental impacts in terms of clearing of forests, and also to the extent that some of that is not even available in the first place. So how do we help our communities, for example, come to terms with the issue of clean cooking? So that means, for example, we need to introduce the technology to them. Now, when you're trying to do that, what are some of the first barriers that you meet? Some of the first barriers that you meet, for example, is the fact that you might not be able to access that particular area when you are transporting materials. Now, what do I mean by that? If, for example, I want to supply piping systems, and there's a particular village where we need to, for example, install a technology, the problem of transfer of that technology comes to the fact that some of the piping may need welding, or even you may need electricity, for example, to do those parts. So if there is no electricity in that area, then maybe you have to resort to other means that are possible to do that. But apart from that, I think if you look at, for example, in the biogas technology, you need water. You cannot create a biogas system without water. And we know that this country is facing a lot of the water poverty is something that we're still experiencing. So if you go to a rural place, for example, where there's no access to water, even though they might have cows that go to the rivers, for example, to consume the water that they need to keep the animals alive, if you're putting up the biogas system there, then you have to get that water from the river. It becomes a real costly exercise. In fact, in places like, for example, go to Kitui, you'll find that there are people who perhaps also have some basic animals you can actually use for doing biogas systems, but you do not have access to that water. If you look at the solar system, I want to put up a solar technology in a particular remote area. I need to upload sometimes, depending on the size of this system. If there's excess use of that particular power, then you perhaps want to connect it and do net metering. Now, without the grid in that particular area, then you want to resort to off-grid systems, which of course is easier to set up. So I think the issue of infrastructure is still very critical in terms of promoting the renewable energy technologies. And unless that is also addressed in some sort, then it will continue to drive the growth of renewable energy. But I think another thing that you've also mentioned is the issue of data awareness creation for example, in the areas where we want to set up these technologies. One of the things I think that has come out very, very strongly is that people are still so much connected to the traditional way of doing things. So when you want to introduce a technology, you have to do a lot of extra mile engagement to try to convince them that this technology can't work for them. And their traditional cooking system, for example, can actually be improved. Also, there are a lot of cultural beliefs that also come with it. So I do agree, infrastructure is a very, very strong element, and also awareness creation amongst our communities and also systems. If you go to, for example, even a hotel like this one, if you want to tell them that, we can actually use your waste oil to generate energy, they'll see that as something that might require additional capital investment that they don't need at this present moment because they feel comfortable. So you need to go the extra mile of trying to educate them and tell them, if you do this, then these are going to be your cost reductions, or these are going to be the benefits that are accruing to it. But we're seeing a lot of awareness creation also taking place. We're seeing the government taking a lot of, especially in the last mile setting, for example. Right now, if you go to the rural place, you find electricity to most of the places. Because today we say that we have around 70% access.
Yes.
Is that correct? To electricity in our rural setting. So the presence of that actually makes a very big difference in terms of how you set up other systems. Because I might have electricity, but I also just need to use a biogas system for cooking. And that electricity becomes an additional synergy building in terms of realizing that whichever aspect of technology that you're talking about. So maybe those are some of the initial comments you can make around about that.
Thank you, David, for those comments. I will then go back to up as well. From the interactions we've had privately through REREC, yeah, the same question, the awareness levels, the technologies, infrastructure, and probably what will be some of the common challenges that they come across, whether it's projects done through REREC or through other arms that you have dealt with.
Okay, thanks, Engineer. And thanks, I think I agree fully, associate fully with what he said just before me. I think there is a real question. I think the challenges, if I allow me, I think, to begin with, in 2018, REREC was doing the first grid-connected solar PV power plant utility scale. This is the Garissa Solar Power Plant, which is the installed capacity is 54.65 megawatt peak, that is essentially curtailed to 50 megawatts at output. But other than the solar, setting up the solar power plant, because of the inadequacies of the transmission network and so on, of course now connected with that facility, REREC had to do about 16 kilometers of transmission infrastructure just to get from the point, from the power plant itself to the nearest Ketrako substation, which is in Garissa. So it really is true. I think the question of supporting infrastructure is very critical. When we do solar, when we do rooftop solar systems, especially in public primary schools, 4,800 such schools. Most of these schools, especially in Samburu, I have been to quite a number. You need to have the roof to put the panel, which when you look at the roof, you wonder whether you should begin first of all by setting up the roof and putting up the glass properly in a manner that then you can bring on the infrastructure, the solar PV on top of it. As a result, actually many of our operations and maintenance issues stem from the fact that you hear roofs have been blown off, therefore panels have been destroyed and damaged. Batteries cannot be stored properly because the same place where you want to install the batteries also is serving as a staff room, serving so many things. It's also a locker. It's a security risk. It's a safety question. I spoke a little about Magenta, Takawiri. Just imagine the logistical nightmare of getting concrete poles to Magenta Island from Segbe Beach or from Mita, or getting the same to Asini and Mkwiro from Shimoni. It's quite a difficult task. And that's just in terms of the supporting the nexus, the other infrastructure that support the development of these technologies. So I think it's a real issue. The challenges we have seen in terms of attitudes. We approach, we go to communities, sometimes, REREC is looking at the least cost option and the one that will ensure there is supply the earliest. There are communities which are usually up in arms because when you come with solar PV, they say, no, this is inferior. We want the real power, that's what they call it. Real power, like a steamer, Kamili. We don't want this kind of thing because their understanding is that there are certain limitations around solar PV. And some of these so these attitudes, it becomes very difficult because then you find that a community actually can mobilize to remove the solar PV so that they believe that the PV, for some reason, will prevent them from being candidates for grid extension projects. So the moment you install solar PV, the first thing they want to do is to either vandalize it or make it unworkable. So that whenever we ask, are you on supply, they say, no, we are not on supply. So it's an attitude issue. It's a cultural, social question which needs to be disposed of through public engagement, a lot of discussions. The other challenge, Engineer, just before then, I think is of course, we have in the whole spectrum of regulation. I think we'll revisit policies, yes, in terms of coherence in what is the government doing, what is the county government doing, what are all these other discrete units doing in trying to push the subject. The national government, like REREC, would be looking to do a project, but then you would have the county government is also perhaps exploring something that they are all intending to achieve the same objective, but the approaches they have taken are very different. And therefore, now you have duplication, or sometimes you simply have projects that do not look very well coordinated. And then the policy, sometimes the policy signals that the government gives, whether it's in tax policy, or whether it's just regulations and other instruments, also then sense this. But the major one, I think, is an economic question. Because, when the upfront costs, when we do the solar PV, for example, the systems we install in schools are easily about 1 million shillings. And we only do this because it's only accepted if the institution is about 5 kilometers away from the grid. That's when it begins making sense. But this amount of money is so huge still. If you think about 4,800 schools, each about 1.5 million, that's a huge amount of money you need to put just to ensure that all these schools are on supply. Now, when you think about this in the lower, in terms of persons, when you want to install PV for somebody, they tell you how much will it cost. When you tell them a 2 kilowatt will take you 300K or 400K, they tell you, let me suffer a little more. It's not yet that serious. Because they understand that when Kenya Power extends the grid, all they'll be required to do is to pay token of which people still complain about, 2,000 so. So that upfront cost, the capital cost, is still a bit high. The technology is still evolving, but these are some of the things that we see from where we sit.
Thank you for those insights, and especially when it comes to how people perceive some of the renewable technologies. People looking for real power. It's something that we can easily put to the communities, the rural areas. But some of us who have also interacted with very big industries in this country, it's just recently that most of them accepted that indeed solar can be able to weld and be able to run their motors. Others, they used to think it's only good for lighting, but not for the industries. And that's a very interesting thing, especially with awareness and cultural, social cultural issues. And if probably this is where you can come in and give us some highlights on the same issues. Drawing an example from what you said, and an example that was given for water project. There was an NGO that was doing water projects across the country and in some of the asphalt areas. So in one of the regions, they will come dig a borehole, but then after a short while, they will find that the borehole either has dirt dumped in, and they used to wonder exactly what used to happen. So they will come create, then after a short while, the place is still jammed with all sorts of dirt. When they came to dig around and find what the reason was, is they realized that they were making the borehole points to be as close as possible to the people that needed the water, so that it can reduce the amount of time that ladies will take to go fetching for water, maybe going a journey that will take 2 hours to and another 2 hours back, so that they have more time for other things. But they didn't realize that it was a social thing, that as they go for the water, then they have time with their friends for 4 hours. So that was interfering with their social arrangement, and so they had to spoil the well so that they can be able to go the same distance, similar to what engineer has highlighted here. I don't know what's the experience, probably with some of these technologies as they become available for use, especially in the informal settlements. Eva.
So, for me first, I'll start by posing a question and just asking a simple question. When we speak about renewable energy, is it easier being implemented in the rural area or in the urban areas? So for me, that's a question to all of you. So because here I've been hearing, we're just speaking about the rural aspect, but when we look at the most polluters or the most people who do not want even to, let me say, adopt We come from the urban areas, and we play a very large, big role when it comes to even the implementation stages. Because even the policies that we have, when it comes to whatever, even when it comes to even the acts that we have even with our county governments, do they even the common Wananchi understand what these policies say? Are we even given the time, the urge of even participating in some of these decision making that are being held? Because now when I hear about the last mile connection, and yet there's a community within the CBD that has lived over 2 years without just mere electricity. For you, can you survive even 1 week without electricity? But these people have been surviving without electricity for more than 2 years. A community in Magadi, Kosovo. Yes, we speak of the last mile connection. So at times it's not community ignorance, at times it's the inclusivity. Are we involved in this community? Because the last mile connection, yes, it started, but who is implementing? The contractors just come, let me say, they do something halfway, then they go. The community will vandalize those to make their own community energy. We will do that because we want power. So we use whatever your products that you came with them, we are going to use them to make our own power. So for us, we are going to innovate, to make, to make ourselves also accommodate ourselves in this community, because that's where we call home. Is it not true? So for me, it's a win-win for us. If the state actors and non-state actors, if we involve the community in this all decision making and also the implementation stage, even in the rural areas, we are going to have a successful adoption of renewable energy. And we cannot speak about energy without speaking about the climate, the environment, the land, the housing. It involves everything when it comes to energy. Energy attacks health. Energy attacks the environment we live in. The housing typology we have in our informal settlements. You know, our informal settlements, we live in shacks, 10 by 10 houses. These houses, for instance, even when we look at the climate scenario now, we are expecting El Niños. Our houses are leaking. We have this community power. You can imagine, it is raining, we have this community power, it's even illegal, the way it's connected is very poor. What kind of damages are we going to bring in the community? So you can imagine. So the community always tries to accommodate itself. At the same time, we're bringing a lot of risks within ourselves. So at times, it's also not just, let's say they're not ignorant, but they also try to find themselves how they can fit in that community and accommodate themselves to live comfortably. They also want to live in dignity. The accessibility, when I hear my colleagues saying accessibility of water, can you imagine in an urban area where even for you to just get to a water station, it takes you, it's like a challenge. It involves even security, your own security as a person, also the women, because the women are the center of everything, even of the development itself. So for you to just access, even as a sanitation facility, just accessing it for you, you must think of security first, how accessible the distance, and all these, the women, we always manage how we can cope with all this. So for me, it's, let's not say the communities are ignorant, let's say the communities always try to find the solutions for themselves. They are very innovative in this. Even whenever we speak about the technology, the communities are always aware. In their own informal way, they are always aware there is this technology that's coming. We have this advantage, the use of, let me say, phones, the technologies that are coming. We take informal learning. We just look at something in YouTube and we try to innovate as communities. So what the communities lack is, let me say, it's maybe interrelation between the actors and also the people who, because you find even the political settlements of our areas play a big role in these developments to come in. For instance, the community has been pushing, this community has been pushing to get electricity, but you find the political scopes of this area. The MCA wants to bring this electricity. The governor, the MP, when you go to the governor's office, they say there is no budget for bringing electricity in these informal settlements. Yeah, there is budget for taking this electricity to the rural person. So there is also no equity of even resources when it comes to the urban people. Yet we even play a bigger role in the economy of Kenya as we speak, when we compare to the rural areas. When we look at now Nairobi, more than 5 informal settlements lack electricity. How do you expect these people to survive? So we find a way of having these solar systems, the private sectors that are distributing the solar systems at a cheaper cost. Because a person who lives in the informal settlements will depend on a daily economy, every day-to-day shilling you get. So they have found themselves accommodating a 20 shilling solar payment daily for you to access that light in your house. So you find that at times you may go even into darkness if you don't have the money to pay for that solar. And when you look at the climate crisis, if there is not too much light, you cannot charge your battery. So even if you pay, you will not get light. So for us, it's just to say, let's integrate all these innovative ideas of bringing in renewable energy. Who does not want to live in a climate-friendly environment? We really want to live where we were so many years back. But when you look at even how things are being implemented in our country, we find they speak. I was at the climate summit, a lot of money was brought in, a lot of money has been placed into the El Nino, but again, are the communities benefiting from all this? Actually, what the communities are waiting for is for evictions, forceful evictions, because we live in the riparian areas. We are at the scope of this infrastructure. Maybe there's a road to be built, and we are along maybe the road. We are waiting for evictions. So what is the community going to gain? So the communities are always at somewhere waiting for, when are you coming to talk to us, so that we can find these solutions. We can create these solutions. We can generate ideas. Because you want to evict these people, you want to bring this development, but you're not involved in me. You've just out somewhere in a table, you've discussed, in Madare we can do 1 or 2, 3 things. But these people are not involved in these discussions, so where are you coming to implement this? So you will come with those good ideas, but the community will chase you away. One, they are seeing you as a threat, you want to take over their property, you want to vandalize their property, so for them they are scared, but again they really need this development. So for us is to always keep on putting these communities at the center of all these discussions. Actually, there's all the learning centers are from these communities. Whenever there's any research to be done, you come to our communities. You get ideas, you come chip in ideas, you get a clue of how to, maybe to re-strategize, and you can see a light and you say, if we go this way, this community is going to benefit. But again, there's this norm of academia taking research findings from our communities, but again, they don't return the report back. So it's not always, it's not an action-oriented research. For us as Muungano, we really push for action-oriented research. If you're coming to our communities and it's not action-oriented research, then don't come. Because for us, we want change. We want change. We want to make our communities better. Who does not want to live in dignity? I want to pay water, pay electricity, the same as the person who lives in an informal area. So for us, we are not ignorant. We are not ignorant. Let me say, what we do is we want to find solutions to also be able to accommodate ourselves in this same city that everyone lives in. Yeah.
Thank you for those comments. I think the last comment we get from Riders International, maybe start with Josephat, and then Dominic is still with us on the same issue of awareness and interaction with communities, and maybe now that we dealt with the persons, communities, maybe Riders International will give us a perspective on the other communities. I will maybe put it as corporate communities, because I know you've interacted with various institutions in the course of implementing this, and maybe you know the level of awareness you will find when you go to, say, a group that is running maybe an enterprise somewhere, how they take up the technologies, their awareness levels, and maybe some of the challenges we come across. Maybe we can start with let's start with Josephat, and then we can have Dominic. Yes.
Yeah, so I think a lot of the challenges in this sector, especially in the individual sector, especially biogas. A lot of them have already been either discussed in detail or just mentioned by these speakers. But when you talk about awareness, I don't believe that yes, there is need for awareness, but awareness is not the biggest. I wouldn't say it is the biggest challenge there is in the uptake of biogas, especially. The biggest challenge to us is basically even if these people, whether this technology are out there, how do they afford it? How do they pay for these technologies? And for this, we in terms of awareness, we are doing a few things to get the education out there. We are always going to meet people out there, farmers groups, we are in shows and exhibitions. REREC is here. We've recently had a meeting with REREC with Mr. Fantas, who's the director. And we are trying to forge a partnership whereby we are going to use the energy centers. We're going to install our technologies in the different energy centers countrywide. So that's an ongoing conversation. But as I said, for us, the biggest challenge has not been the information. Every person who's calling to the people who call us asking for these technologies, one of the first thing they ask is 80,000 shillings or 50,000 shillings. How can I, do you have a liquor logo, for example, option? So affordability has been the biggest barrier in the uptake of biogas. And in line with that, we have been many conversations with financial institutions who are trying to come up with very innovative ways of funding these solutions. So hopefully in the next year or two, or the period that we've signed up this agreement, we're going to be able to, it's one of the way to reach this barrier of financing. So, and hopefully we'll be able to see a notable increment in the uptake of solutions because of this partnership. The other thing we've seen is one of the other big challenges we've seen, especially in Kenya, is policies on renewable energy sector. Recently, I was in a meeting whereby I heard, like in Tanzania, they have a policy whereby by year 2030, all schools must have biogas by year 2030. So that's a very huge opportunity for the biogas actors in the region, not only in Tanzania. So if something was to happen like that in Kenya, I'm sure it would be, if it was at a policy level, and you're saying all government institutions must have biogas provided you at a certain level, then that would be something to be a very nice way to increase the uptake of these solutions. So at Madam here, Eva asked about biogas. Is it biogas for just rural or also urban? Biogas is for everyone, whether in rural areas or urban areas. You qualify. The solutions, for example, in the slum dwellers, we have solutions whereby we install biogas systems and then we do what is called mini gridding. We know space is an issue, especially in slums. So you could have something like communal kitchens whereby you set up a biogas unit and people come, bring in their food, they cook and they take away. There are examples of such approach working already in Kibera. And we are saying these are some of the approach that we as Biogas International are implementing in a few places that we're working in that would actually be replicated in these places.
Dominic, if you are still with us. Okay. So we seem not to have Dominic, but I think the conversation is going well.
Maybe to add on, let me say on the issue of community awareness, let me say a success story. We've all heard of the Mukuru Special Planning Area. So with the Mukuru Special Planning Area, working with the county government and vigorous, continuous community participation led to the changes we're seeing in Mukuru. Actually, Mukuru was one of the worst informal settlements you could go to. Mukuru, whether it's raining or not raining, for you to access Mukuru, then the sharks in Mukuru, you had to wear gumboots. The infrastructure was so poor. So, but with the continuous participation of the community, they were able to have talks with the county government, and we have been having vigorous in all sectors, the health sector, education sector, energy, housing, all the sectors, the planning sectors that are there in the county government. We had so many consortium meetings trying to create awareness and sensitization with this community. We even had to do door-to-door campaigns to just make sure that it's not about maybe structure owners or maybe land owners or tenants, because whenever a change is brought in a community, it's for everybody. So with this continuous and rigorous community participation led to the changes that we are seeing in Mukuru Special Planning Area, where we find that now they have energy, which is legal, they have access to water, they have access to sanitation facilities, the infrastructure, even the roads have been built. We can see there's a health facility. So a lot, when communities are the center of all these discussions, it's always easier for implementation to work out.
Yeah, thank you. So we've gone through a range of topics from technology awareness, social, cultural issues, either aiding or hampering after renewable energies. I wanted to bring the money matters to the very last end, but I've seen we've actually gotten there. So at this point, I just want us to have a reflection or a discussion on the financial constraints or availability of financing models, together with maybe the policies and regulations, and how fast they are working with the communities and various players within the industry, and probably how best we can be able to improve. And when you look at this, you'll find that some of the projects will need to be sponsored by various financiers, either for seeding, or at times just donations. Like the project we have been told about what government is doing in primary schools. Then it's interesting also to note that we did the last mile connection. I don't know if the informal settlements within our urban centers, if they are less than a mile, probably that's why they were not considered. So they were within less than a mile, probably why they were not considered. But I think it's food for thought that we still go back to the policy makers. Yeah, but having looked at these things, at the end of the day, you find that when you want to get a program going, when you want to get a product going, it all boils down to money. Is there money for people to be able to access the technology? And then is there money to be able to sustain the use of the same technology? So I want us just to look at this and ask ourselves what we have seen, and probably what could be the models that we could be looking at as we look at driving this green revolution. So let me start with this first, Mr. Edward.
Thank you. So, what have we seen in this in respect to financial models? Yes, financing being one of the biggest barrier. One of the things we've tried to do as Biogas International is try and offer these facilities, and because everyone wants biogas, and they provided that you can give people a reasonable payment plan, then people are willing to accept these solutions. So we tried a model a few years back whereby we were saying pay whatever you have, pay like for example, we were saying pay 20,000 Kenyan shillings. Then we came up with a model where people were paying 10,000 Kenyan shillings every month. But we, within a very short time, we realized that wasn't working, because we, being the Kenyans that we are, people will overpromise when they're signing that contract. But as soon as they see gas, or as soon as they start using the system, debt is no longer a priority. Paying the debt no longer is a priority. So, and if you can imagine someone in Mombasa, someone in Eldoret, and we're based in Nairobi, we got owed so much, then we had to stop the whole model. Within about a year, we were owed more than 2 million shillings. We had to stop. Because you call someone anakuambia school fees leo, mtoto ni mgonjwa kesho, and then it becomes unsustainable, so we had to stop. And that's why now we are saying we are not experts on financial matters, we don't have the infrastructure, but we can partner and come up with innovative ways of funding our products. The example that I've just given right now, many people who need biogas, one may not have even the credentials of the bank. They may not have even the credit, what do you call it, the credit rating to get a bank loan. And those who do have the credit rating fear taking loans for renewable energy because of the interest rates. And that's why in what you're doing, we are now negotiating with financial institutions, like the agreement we just signed, whereby we're saying, we as Biogas International Limited will find a way. Instead of you charging the customer an interest, we are going to give you that interest as a company. So basically, we try and so basically this is what we've done right now. You go to a bank, any KCB bank, you tell them, I've come from Biogas International, I want a loan. They give you a loan for 12 months, and you don't pay even a shillings in interest, and you pay for a period of 1 year. So hopefully that will help increase the sales of our systems. Other models that we've seen work is working with the cooperatives, check-off systems, especially in whether it's milk circle, whether it's a coffee circle, whatever. Whereby you go agree with a circle, it could be a teacher circle, whereby they do a check-off system on your behalf. So the members get biogas systems, they don't pay a dime, but then on a monthly basis they get deducted from their salaries. That we've seen work. The other thing we've seen work is the table banking model. Because of the peer pressure effect, especially among women. We run a very big program where we install over 50 units in one community without any legal document, because the women guaranteed each other. Na usipolipa unajua unakimbizwa na mwenzako. So that model worked very, very well. So I believe subsidies, we work with programs. Like now we are working, we have a project going on with a company in Kirinyaga, whereby they are looking at vulnerable families and they are subsidizing the units. They are subsidizing the units at the tune of up to 80%. So they are looking at the most, what can you afford to pay? But some people are getting a subsidy of up to 80%. So subsidies work. We don't believe in free things. Free things will never work, because we've been to projects where systems have been given away for free, and within 1 month or two, the systems have failed completely. Because unless there is some sense of ownership to anything, then it's not sustainable. So we insist that whether it's subsidy, people have to pay for the systems in order for the system to be sustainable.
Thank you for those comments. Many matters on how can make results work, especially in the community area.
For me, I'm looking the aspect of what my colleague was saying about someone managing to pay maybe 10,000 per month. For a person in an informal settlement, that is, let me say, that's salary, a whole month's salary, because we depend in these casual jobs. So for me, one, let me say, economical constraints also make us go for cheaper things, which cheap is always expensive. Because before the power was cut off in Mathare, people will pay 300 to 500 shillings a month for electricity. And for this electricity, you'll do everything with it. You'll have your fridge, because the communities, the informal people have access to all this because of the second-hand economy that is there and business. So for now, the electricity is not there, and you can look at the electricity rates right now. For 500 shillings, you're getting 18 units token, and that one does not last you a month, yet it's just for maybe lighting, lighting only. So it has already limited you from cooking, from even having the e-cooking. You cannot cook with the electricity because it's expensive, and that's in a formal area. So why don't we, these people from informal settlements, they'll go for their community power because it's cheap and it's always accessible. For them, it's always accessible. For if this line loses power, they go to the other line. So for them, they will always say cheap, but again, it's expensive. So for me, our economical constraints also hinder us from maybe doing a lot of things. And also with the help of groups, the table banking, the savings groups, that's the economy that runs the informal settlements. The table banking, the loaning, those are the systems. Actually, there's no one in an informal settlement who does not have any loan from any group. We live in that economy. There's that circular chain of exchanging money. I borrow from this group, I go pay from that group. So that's how we can also be able to also integrate these people so that they can be also able to get this energy. If we consolidate them in one area, just as Joshua has said, we try and give these people that product, they will be, themselves will be accountable for the payment of this product. But again, they will always look at, is it cheap? We do a lot of calculations as people from the informal settlements. We always, the pluses and the minuses, that's our norm. That's usual. So if you do the pluses and we have a lot of minuses, actually they will not take your product. They won't, because they look at, even if it's sustainable, for them they look at that moment. They don't think about a sustainable way. For us it's a short-term solution. We find short-term solution for only that period. Because at the end of this period, there's another person who will come. So we believe in, let me say, maybe subsidies and products that come in, day out. But for me, I think it's high time people from my communities will come and start finding solutions to sustainable products that will keep us moving for even more than 20 years. Because it's a generational inheritance thing that we want our children to adopt. If we start thinking about the renewable energy, it's something that we want a sustainable solution. Yeah.
Thinking about the next generation, how we can make these innovations, new things, actually a way of life as we live the dream revolution. Just the comments.
Yeah,
financing models and
I think first of all, let me just make reference to what I said. And if you look at how the technology is usually uptaken, you must look at it from various segments of the society. I mean, there are those who can afford, there are those who cannot afford. There are those who are somewhere in between, they can afford and yet not afford. They have to do all the plus and the minuses. So I think that has to be taken into account. And for the case of slum dwellers, just to say a bit of a comment there. I think for our what can I say? Urban slums. Do you call them urban slums? Or peri-urban slums?
We call urban.
Urban slums.
Yeah, urban informal settlements.
Or informal settlements. I think they need special solutions to their status. Like what she's saying, you need to come up with some long-term way of intervention, including housing, for example, including water supply. When you talk about the economics or affordability or how the technology is consumed there, it's not the same thing as when you come to, say, the rural setup in Siaya, where you have farmers, or if you go to Kiambu, for example. You have to look at it differently. But for me, I think the most important thing is to appreciate the fact that our economic system is a free enterprise. It's a free economy system. I mean, where demand and supply play the part at the end of the day. And so affordability or lack of affordability depends on, if you look at Kenya, for example, what is the state of wealth of the people in the country? If we look at uptake of technology, who can afford what? And at the end of the day, people will continue to suffer because they're not able to afford. Why not able to afford is because the economic status cannot allow them to do so. So the government has to come up with some very bold steps to try to uplift the living standards of its people, for them to be able to afford the viable technologies. How do you do that? It becomes very tricky when there are a lot of factors in play, including the global system that you know, the global economic state that we have currently, about the conflicts happening and increasing price of oil. But apart from that, I think we also need to look at the fact that technologies grow. You know, technology is the development of technology, and the cost of developing technology takes certain phases. If you look at, for example, the mobile phone that you're using today, I remember about maybe 20 years back, who could afford even a single piece? I used to go to some hotel, and then there was this guy who always, he was flying around, you know, in the lawn, with this big thing, you know, and he was communicating, and I was like, this guy, where is he coming from? And so I was told this one actually cost like 200,000 shillings to buy that. But the technology is grown. Research has brought it to such a place that it has grown to a level where it can be afforded by many more people at a large scale. Who knows? If we can invest a lot more in developing our technologies, it could take us shorter to get to a place where, for example, Biogas International going to set up a system, say flexi system in a particular rural home. It's just 5,000 shillings. So it's just not like that. To the extent every home you find actually having that flexi system. How long will that take to do that? What does the Biogas International need in terms of government intervention? And now that brings in the issues of taxes as well. And unless we really also look into how we are managing our taxation system vis-a-vis the needs of the populations, then it will take us a much longer time, because these technologies, some of the parts, for example, are being imported from outside. I don't know whether now Biogas, I don't know whether this the material you import it or you're currently manufacturing it. Are you importing it?
A little bit.
A little bit. Now you see the problem is that you find that there's tax involved in that. So eventually there's no way, even if he tries to bring the price down, it's very impossible to do that. So I think we need to look at the pricing and the uptake of the technology, both from our economic system in itself, our taxation regimes, the supply demand dynamics that take place, but also let's be let's be cognizant of the fact that technology has got its own curve of growth. And the only thing that we need to do is how can we shorten the growth to the extent that it can be mass consumed at the end of the day.
So last but not least, Yamakwa can also have a take of the financing models that was wrap up, and then probably if there are any policy regulation interventions that probably government is doing, from where you sit, especially with parents now having gotten the mandate to be able to be the champions to drive the uptake of new technologies. Maybe we could be having programs, or maybe that's not to say that you preempt the strategy. Yes, but you can share some knowledge on what could be done. What should say the industry play or expect? What should the communities be able to play in that space or expect? And then what could maybe from a government department, what could be going on or plan ahead that will help us create this ecosystem that enable a faster organic growth or uptake of these systems, like Jason said.
Okay. Thanks, engineer, and thanks, panelists. I think it's good on this one. I speak at this time. It's good always to hear, particularly to listen to what the sentiment is on the streets. So on ground, it will be different. So it's important, I think, because also now, by virtue of representing a government entity, my principal job here is actually to listen. Listen and then see if we are actually on the right track or if we need to change course. And So I think it's very enriching. Thanks, Eva, for the insights, and also the rest of my panelists. I think I really appreciate. We're in a difficult place. The story began with energy access, the basics of it. That was just simply supply. Then over the years, the question morphed into not just, and of course access was together with it was a question of affordability. Then we moved to the question of security, energy security, and energy security is about reliability, safety, and other aspects which enriched the whole question of energy. And now we're in the third phase, which is environmental sustainability. Each of these phases, in my view, there's a consequence on cost. The truth is, I think, in my view, again, renewables, solar, biogas, or bioenergy generally, solar, and when you say solar, that's both photovoltaics and solar thermal. All this, it really is the next level of supply. If you look at it against the grid, the conventional, what we've been doing all these years. Because basically, if we install a solar PV system in your house, we give you back the power. You decide how you use it. You decide the response time in terms of operations and maintenance. You cannot say that you're waiting for KPLC to respond. You cannot say it, okay, Libisha. All this power is brought back into your hands, and in exchange, then there must be a cost. Also, the other truth is, what we're paying right now for electricity is, let's say, 22 shillings per unit for those who are on utility supply. If you look at 22 shillings per unit, someone is doing a solar PV at 2 kilowatt or 3 kilowatt, and probably they put in, let's say, 400K or 300K, depending on which sort of components they assemble. The payback time is a simple payback time. On that alone, if you make 22 shillings per unit, and therefore maybe a certain household in the city, two households, there's one that is relatively energy intensive, perhaps they use 4,000 shillings in a month. By the time you recover 400K, that's 100 months if my math is about 10 years. Yeah, so in years, so about 10 years. Yeah, so that's about 10 years in a single payback, assuming there are no other things playing out, discount factors, inflation, all these things that impact the time value of money. If we were doing this particular calculation now with Eva's results from the informal settlements of 500 shillings a month, then you look at that solar PV, the same solar PV of 300K or something like that, then certainly it becomes, it doesn't make sense. Now, we then have a problem which we need to solve because we are the same persons who would wish to. And I agree fully also, before we discuss the very elevated question of environmental sustainability, is a basic question of supply. People simply, what we have gathered also in the streets is people don't care whether it's coming from diesel, it's coming from wherever, all they want is they want power. So then also the obligation on us is to guarantee a very high level of reliability for these systems. I think it's a complex puzzle. One way the government is trying to deal with this is, for example, for government, whether it's mini grids, particularly solar home systems and rooftop solar PV that government does in public institutions, for example, are made free of charge to the institutions. They simply have the investment, which I believe is part of the reason why we have problems with maintaining them, because people have not. You only take seriously where your money is. When Kenya Power tells you to bring 1 million for a transformer, people respect the transformer and hug it with their lives. But when the same government does a solar PV system at 1.5 million, people think it's inferior. Yet, that's actually the cost of about 4 step-down transformers. It is just that it was not economically feasible, viable to extend the grid in that manner that time. So the government does that, but for mini grids, there is what now is cross subsidies. So whether you are in Narok in Marsabit, in Laut, or in Malesa, whether you are in Gabel or you are in Suradoro, in Samburu, wherever it is you're in the country, you pay the same for units consumed. Now, this is important because whether now you're consuming it from a mini grid, if it's private, a public mini grid, or you're consuming it from the utility supply, you pay the same. You've already seen the costs already are very different. So already the government is subsidizing this cost. And that's what we call the cross subsidies. Basically just to ensure that, because there are some politics also of supply, so you pay the same for electricity regardless of which source you're getting it from, if it is a public run entity. For private mini grids, for example, they charge a cost reflective tariff because they're fully in business, the math must add up. Other interventions, I think, because broadly, there are interventions in terms of capital cost, and then there are interventions in terms of the cost of capital. So one on capital cost is just, I think, one is that the questions of subsidies, and then there is also other things government does in terms of the tax policy, whether it is on VAT or import duties, on the entire tax regime, just to try and situate the question of importation, for example. And we lobby as GOK, as REREC. Of course, there is CAREA, as he indicated. There are many other lobby entities within the sector that actively lobby the government to ensure that it is, you then try to reduce taxes and duties on the importation of some of these critical material, inverters, batteries, PV modules, for example. So whether it is in the question of those, the tax policies and so on, or it is in just trying to reduce to deal with the question of cost of capital. So the government, right now, we have very many bilateral agreements with the World Bank, GIZ, many other entities, AFD, OFID, very many other players who then are able to give us grants and credit facilities at rates that are, these are basically concessional, where the loan component is basically concessional loans. But basically, it is just to try and ensure that that cost is managed for the sake of access. In the private space, these mathematics, I think people need to accept somewhere midstream that there is a cost to a higher tier or a higher level of supply. And mini grids, or not just mini grids, but solar PV, or even bioenergy, most of these things are very, the upfront costs are very high. Allow me just to finish, Engineer, by speaking about something that is connected to this, which is the standards that we have alluded to, which have a great consequence of cost. Standards. And these standards are both in terms of technical standards and service standards. So if you are doing solar thermal, maybe solar water heating, there are many types of, let's say, flat panel or evacuated tube collectors. There are many types. The difference is in the cost, and of course, KEBS is in charge of standards in the country. Part of the challenges we have is fix and a lot of things that are brought into the market that are substandard, but they are cheaper. And they flood the market, they therefore interfere with people's perspectives about renewable energy. REREC, because we've done 4,800 schools, imagine 10 batteries in each school, then you can calculate the number of batteries that REREC has deployed in the field at this time. So 4,800, you just need to add a zero here. And you will see the huge outlay, that is the initial installation, that's before maintenance, for example. And a good number, you'll find that a good number of these people that supply these things do not intend to supply genuine products. This has great consequence in people's understanding of the technology and their appreciation of it. Then the service standards, which is talked about, O&M. We now do the O&M. I think in the private space, people built into the supply contract also is the O&M cost. So this generally takes up the cost of installation for these components. So if we look at the entire ecosystem, I think one way this can be cheaper, certainly. One way we can appreciate is to not make a false comparison. The utility, the grid, is a different animal altogether, with different load centers all working in harmony to try and keep stability in the grid. So you have, right now, if power goes off, people will be calling Kenya Power and requesting immediate restoration. And the person requesting this could be this hotel Best Western that was maybe monthly bills may be going into hundreds of thousands. But the same person also, say in an informal settlement who's paying 500 per month, also requests immediate restoration. If you're the county business manager for Kenya Power in this city, you have a very small choice. If you have finite resources, you have one truck, you have one technician. Tell me where you will deploy this truck and the technician. To restore supply at Best Western, or to go and deal with the supply issue in Kumkwete. You make a business decision. That is if you want to stay on in the job. REREC tries to make social decisions. So our work is not entirely business decisions. So we try to bridge this gap. The reason we do not operate in certain pockets, like say in the cities, is simply because we are constrained by our mandate. You cannot be doing rural electrification and also doubling up in urban work, because then that is the province of Kenya Power. It's a complex puzzle. It's a complex puzzle, but engineers, maybe people need to agree whether they are willing to pay for the things they want. Not just ability, but willingness to pay. People pay a lot of money for things that I consider not as critical. If you ask people how much they pay for airtime, the engineer, I'm sure you'll be familiar. Airtime. How much you could pay in airtime in a single household of 4 persons? You can calculate that, how much goes into that. Ask people how much they pay for other utilities that they consider critical. But when it comes to power, suddenly, people assume that as it travels all the way from Kindaruma to your house, it has been carried somehow by, there's been no cost. And as trucks move around the city trying to go on them, these trucks basically are being fueled by, not even by diesel, are being fueled because even that would be a truck cost. So I think that willingness to pay is a question, but it needs a lot of education, a lot of understanding, and so on. Let me put a comma here, engineer.
Thank you. I think we have really dealt with this topic, and I know there is still a lot of information and knowledge out there, and we also know that the more you discuss, the more issues that you raise, and this is a conversation that must go on and on for as long as we have a desire to be able to make energy available to our people. So I want us to close. Maybe I can start with the engineer as well.
Thank you very much for the very enriching discussions. Thanks, moderator, and thank you, team. I think I see great progress that has been made from where we sit. We are now at about 77% access, and depending on who you read, between 75 to 80%. Which I think is a good return from where we were. Kenya, I think, is a global leader in this space, and we just need to be a bit more aggressive. And one, of course, the many things we discussed in terms of challenges, find solutions in partnership, which I think is an important part. So we have seen that the world is a little behind in meeting its energy access targets, and Sub-Saharan Africa particularly is lagging behind. So we need to double up efforts, we need to be very deliberate. The government is trying to push this conversation by ensuring that the policies that will stimulate this revolution are in place. I think the number of regulations that EPRA has churned out in this regard are quite a number that are still undergoing public participation. And the ministry has also put in place many policies, the clean cooking strategy, bioenergy strategy. Right now under discussion is the Kenya National Electric Cooking Strategy. We have in the province of solar, there are so many policies, I think, and regulations that have been developed to try and unlock. The critical one, I think, right now the ministry has invited participation and views on the climate investment financing. And this has to do with the investment opportunities available within the sector and how the government intends to partner with the private sector in unlocking investments in RE. I think we are on the cusp of something. We just need to harmonize both. There are international organizations interested in this. There are lending organizations. There are lobby organizations, and there are government entities with different responsibilities, particularly GOK, with regulation, licensing, in standards. All these things, I think, as we harmonize, then we'll be able to move towards our target. I think where we are today, I can say confidently, because there's hardly a part of the country have not stepped in insofar as solar is concerned. I can say that there is a lot of interest. The ordinary person, as Eva says, the ordinary person actually has a lot of information. In fact, sometimes there's a bit of an information overload. People process so many things, only that there are too many pressures that have to, it's a complex puzzle. So there's a lot of information. People know what is good for them. This energy, this climate change discussion has moved away from boardrooms. It's being heard in manyatas, it's being heard in all manner of places in the country. So what we need to do is to ensure that this information then is broken down into bits that can be easily digested, and people can continue making the best choice for energy. Thank you very much.
Yes, what? Yeah, a minute of closing remarks.
Thank you. I think I'll use my 2 minutes to add to what to the last topic, which was a financial model, but also the opportunity. With all this challenging, having said that finance is one of the biggest issue in the article of biogas. For example, I was just going through a proposal that we made for food plants here. And out of 10, especially at a large scale systems, they come back to us and say it's too expensive, So it's back to affordability. But that has presented an opportunity, which now adding to the financial model, we are calling biogas as a service, whereby, like this particular client I'm looking at, we had the quotation was about asking for 4 million shillings, but working on return on investment, the payback period was 1 year because they're spending 12,000 shillings every day on LPG gas. So the biogas as a service model is whereby we, as Biogas International or Professor Siagi and Sitati with their mediums, come in, say, I can fund the infrastructure, I can buy the biogas digester at the 4 million of whatever money, put it in a certain hotel. But the amount of money they've been paying for LPG every day, that is what they pay back. So you offer service. So and that means they will never need to own that infrastructure, because once you get your money, you feel, and what we've seen, we tried that once with the farm where they're drying bananas. They were among the participants in our last meeting. We used that model whereby they were paying us 50,000 Kenya shillings a month, but within 4 months, the economics made so much sense to them. They said, "No, we can continue paying this. Let's just buy it." So, and this is the opportunity there is in biogas. Go to a hotel, offer them a biogas service, feed the biogas digester, make sure they've got enough biogas in their kitchens, and they pay for the service. Then you also benefit from the sale of the fertilizer from the biogas digester. Yeah. So, a slum model, we are saying people cannot afford 10,000 shillings. These are the models we're looking at. Have a biogas unit, however much you pay for charcoal or LPG, whatever people are using, that is the same amount we'll be asking them to pay for the service of biogas. So I think that is important. And I'm saying this because I believe everyone who is here is also ambassador of renewable energy. So if you hear a hotel, a school, whatever, whoever needs biogas, and you don't have the money, just mention that you have it somewhere. You don't really need to invest anything. You just need to be making monthly payments. So the only challenge there will be if 10 hotels came to us at the same time, can we afford it? Or can we afford it as an investor? So, but that is a discussion we can have because we can go for a loan or something, or financing or something. But yes, I think it's a huge opportunity offering biogas as a service.
So if there are many, it's a good problem to have that.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I think for me, really, if I was to spend even one of my 2 minutes, it's just to echo what I think my two colleagues have also mentioned there. First of all, beginning with the issue of information management, I think it's true, there's a lot of information out there. And one of the things that we are trying to work at today is to try to see how best we can manage information. And why do we need to manage that information is because there's a lot that we can retrieve in terms of getting interventions or innovations going forward. And why I would want to echo that is the fact that the government, I think, needs to put its money where it's worth. We know today, for example, that we spend about half of our foreign exchange in importing oil products, for example. We know the potential of bioenergy in this country is actually about 70% of energy supply mix in the country. If you were to divert this foreign exchange to build that particular subsector, do you know what amount of change will actually bring about in terms of the direction we take as a country? But again, how do you do that if you don't have the right research and the right information that you can access to in trying to create the kind of models, for example, that is talked about? And I totally agree with the way to go is the way to provide a service, not the technology. But again, the challenge there will be investment. So why are we not having investments coming in to develop some of these subscale technologies? I think it's the same reason that the government, I think, has a challenge to put in the money where it's worth and build the right policies. One of them, for example, I don't understand, to be honest, that since 2019, today is 2023, this, how many years, 4 years down the line? Mr. Ngat, sorry.
Yes.
I mean, look at it. The Constitution is also very clear that every 3 years there should be a report on the integrated, what do they call it? The national, what do you call it? Integrated National Energy Plan. Okay. But then now we are 4 years down the line. How many counties do we have? We have 47 counties. How many counties have actually developed energy plans? Not more than 5. Okay, and even these 5 have not been ratified. And we are looking at having the integrated energy plan in the first place. So I'm asking myself, guys, how do you go forward when you don't have a plan? We need the energy plans. Why is it taking so long to develop even a single energy plan for a country? Why are our priorities as a country? Because in the energy plan, then you tell me that, okay, fine, we need to do ABCD to maximize on the resources that we have, so that we actually also impact on benefits of the environment and other economic well-being of the people and help the people. So I think on my closing remark, if you want to really impact, and it's not a question of, thank you very much that we have 70-80% access. I need to listen to everybody and really hear that this 70-80% is actually impacting. And she says, oh yeah, by the way, we can see a very big difference. I'm happy right now, my mother at home, after many years of fighting to get the access, today has got electricity access to them. But again, let me tell you something. They do not use that electricity until I probably send some money for the token. I have to buy token in my own house in Nairobi. I have to buy token for them. And my friend, it's not easy given the current economy. So we have provided the electricity then. But is it really accessible? Yes, it is accessible, but is it really that energy security that we're talking about? It's not there. So we need to relook at how we are doing our policies. so much money that we're spending on the non-renewables, on fossil fuel, that's the thing. This information that you're trying to manage, how can the government use that information to actually change its policy in a certain direction? Thank you.
Thank you, David. Eva, just like you started it, finish it for us.
I'm going to carry two categories of a community person and also an actor. So for me, it's a win-win. Let's have a lot of community participation in all these discussions, because if the community and the rural area was involved in the accessibility and affordability of the tokens, you will not be being called every time that you send the money to the tokens, because you will come with a way of how I can afford this electricity, at the same time it's accessible for me, at the same time it's safe and also environmental friendly. So for me, it's community participation in either policy making, in any implementation of any product that is being brought by either state actors or non-state actors is very key in changing our economy as a country. Well, as also actors, what I'll say is we really need to go down to the community. We really need to go back to the community. Let's move away from the boardrooms. Let's go to the community. Let's actualize what is really happening in the communities. Let's see what we plan. Is it really going to work in these communities? So let's go and start again redrafting all these agendas and ideas we have for these communities. Let's go back to the drawing board. That's what I see.
Thank you very much. And I think at this point I will take the opportunity to thank first the panel for being magnanimous enough to share your experiences and the knowledge in this conversation, which I know is going to create a basis for information and innovations that can be able to help address some of the challenges of the part. As we have finished, I think it's clear that one, there is need for energy, and whatever we thought are challenges are actually opportunities for us to be able to get into this space and provide solutions, and the solutions have to be affordable with proper financial models that can make it work. And one of the key things that will make this much more easier and practical is partnerships. Now, talking about partnerships, I would like to thank Boy University and all the partners that have been present on this project and for this webinar. The Royal Academy for sponsoring the project that has made it possible for us to have these meaningful discussions. So thank you all, thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think the component we've gotten from the panelists and or from the webinar needs to be acknowledged in a better way. So I would want to say, let's really thank those. Jen, you want to ask them in a way to appreciate them? Okay, thank you. So let's just clap for them. We clap them only once, and we tell them asante. Okay, let's do it. Asante. Now, it's not easy to sit for 2 hours and concentrate on the topic and give output in a coherent way the way we've gotten it. So that's why I'm saying the panelists, the moderator, we are really grateful because you've kept it so nicely. I think it's time that we've run out of time, not ideas.
Yes.
And two, it's not that we are tired. I believe there was still more, but for the sake of making the day move on, we had to stop somewhere. Let me make a small confession. Of course, we are not priests. and you're not Catholic, so I'm not making a confession and I'm hoping that I'll be forgiven. But I like the diversity of the panelists that we had, because you're not reading from, everybody looks at it from a different dimension, and that brings complementarity. And it's just a pity that today's webinar, we wanted 60% ladies and 40% men. But unfortunately, the ladies we invited to come and be part of the panelists, they were not available. Now, there are a lot of passionate things, and sometimes, and when we talk about the renewable energy, I'm not taking it away from Engineer Muhogo, from your KenGen background. I mean, it's important that we should have renewable energy even at global level that will take us to the next millennium. And I think we are almost virtually there. It's just that from our history is the one that is pulling us back, even in terms of the cost of power in this country. But women, and should I say children, they become really victims of lack of quality power. And therefore, the component that Eva was talking about must be things we must reflect and think more. What is it that they need, and how do they need them? Yeah. How do you package what they need? Of course, this discussion can continue and continue, and since the webinar is over, I cannot continue propagating the webinar, but I must be saying what is the way forward. So that's a component possibly we shall have to think through. But again, knowing that I'm studying between you and the lunch, some people will not like me. And since I don't want to spoil a day that has gone very well, especially the webinar part, can we think about the challenges we've talked about, and how do we find opportunities to create interventions for the same? That's my parting shot. As I say, thank you so much. We can't thank you enough, and we really hope that we can all come together to make it happen for ourselves. Thank you. I don't know if you have any announcements to make. Okay, as you prepare for the announcements, and I'm looking at it from the component of lunch, whether it's ready or not. Yeah, and if you have, you even have the coupons. Thank you so much. I want to say this will mark the end of our morning session or our webinar. So for the stakeholders that we invited, we want to thank you for coming. We want to really request you to take that message you are discussing here back to your respective places and tell them we are willing to collaborate in finding those solutions. And two, I want to wish you journey masses as you after lunch you can leave at your own leisure. For the partners, I think we will sit to see a few things that we need to do, and that's the much I want to say. So there's that component of lunch, and possibly there is a component of bus fare. I don't know if that announcement is there, and I hope and I trust that we shall be in a position to thank ourselves and look for a way forward from this point on. Thank you, and thank you.